and welcome back to First Chapter Friday. I am Miss Mary at the Dutcher Middle School Library, and today we are going to be reading Circle Within a Circle by Monte Killingsworth. This is our fourth and final installment for celebrating Native American Heritage Month, which was the month of November. And because we didn't have school last week, obviously it didn't get posted. So without further ado, let's begin. I am the fox roaming for your changes. I am the salmon dreaming in the waters of the sun. I am the mushroom celebrating rains. I am the bear dancing for the gentle woman. I am the guardian of the infant child. I am the carrier of the elder's song. I run for the dead and the rainbow. Dwayne Neatum. Escape. The path is whatever passes, no end in itself. Gary Snyder. Chapter 1. The day had begun like other days. It was Sunday, the 18th of July. After nearly 2 months with his new foster parents, Dawn and Tina, Chris was settling into a routine of trying to stay quiet, trying to stay out of their way, and knowing he never could. He was learning that he could never please them. He was learning not to try. At 10:30, he was stretched out on the velour sofa, wearing pink and blue baggy surfing shorts and a skater dye tank top, settling in to watch the Braves play the Cubs. An open box of Wheat Thins lay within easy reach. The pregame show was just ending when Don walked into the room. "Christopher," he said, "I hope you aren't going to make me confront you on this. You know how we both hate it when that happens, and you know I have the means to win every time if it comes to that." Don was in his mid-40s, paunchy and balding. He was small, almost frail, and had gray skin. Whenever he confronted Chris, his voice became reedy and tremulous. Lately, he had been using the "I have the means to win" threat quite frequently. "Your mother and I," Chris groaned. He hated it when Don used that phrase, "have made a firm decision, and I explained this all to you last night, and I thought I had made it clear that you were going to be ready to go by now. You know that services begin promptly at 11 o'clock, and we must be seated by—" Don flipped up his left arm and pulled back the sleeve of his suit to check his watch. "As a matter of fact, we should be leaving in precisely 10 minutes. Chris observed Don as a reflection on the television screen. Morning light streamed into the living room, reflecting off the white walls, making Don in his gray suit more visible on the screen than the program. A beer commercial had begun. Chris had seen it before. 3 men who were stranded on a tiny desert island watched in disbelief as 3 bikini-clad young women pull a raft filled with ice and cans of beer up onto the beach. Chris smiled to see the women in their bathing suits. One red, one white, one blue, splashing and jumping over and through Don's reflection. He did not turn around, did not respond. He was learning not to. Don waited. He stood at the end of the sofa behind Chris, his arms stiffly at his sides, leaning forward slightly, his jaw clenched. Chris could see in the TV screen that Tina was now leaning against the doorway behind Don, sort of peeking in from the kitchen, waiting. Then suddenly, it was showdown time. Don launched into a tirade that began with, "You will go to church, not only today, but every Sunday," and continued through, "You will not watch this senseless, sinful stuff on television." His voice went up half an octave. Tina retreated into the kitchen until only part of her face was visible in the kitchen doorway. And, maybe because it was such an easy response to make, maybe because he had been yelled at, scoffed at, criticized, and ridiculed beyond endurance, and maybe because when you're 14 and you've been passed around most of your life from one loser to the next, and there's nobody to listen and nobody to care, you're bound to make a few mistakes. Chris pulled a Wheat Thin from the box, curled his thumb under it, casually flipped it high into the air, caught it in his mouth without looking, without even moving his head from the pillows, and reached for the remote control to turn up the sound. But he never touched it, because Don had come around to the front of the sofa, grabbed the remote, and turned off the TV. Then, with uncharacteristic athletic grace, he turned and with a sidearm motion hurled the remote control straight over the TV and right through the window. Bingo! It left a hole about the size of a basketball right in the center of the floor-to-ceiling deluxe double-glazed picture window. Chris was amazed. The hole was perfectly round and exactly in the center of the window. Around the hole, the glass had cracked into a million tiny pieces, but had stayed in place. It looked like a spider web. Tina gasped and disappeared into the kitchen. Outside, the neighbor's lawnmower droned. "Uh-oh," thought Chris. "Now you listen to me, mister." Don's voice approached a screech. He was directly over Chris, leaning forward so that his face was about 4 feet from Chris's. His tie seemed to be strangling him. "We did not take you into our home so you could be insolent and take advantage of your mother and me." "Your mother and me?" "We took you in as a service to our community. We took you off the street. We allowed you to come into our home. We fed you and bathed you and clothed you so that we could make you a better person, so that the world would be a better place. We've allowed you some time to get to know us. We haven't asked much of you in the 7 weeks you've been here. Now it's time to get serious. The fun is over. Do you hear me? The fun is over." When Don got worked into a fever pitch, he repeated certain phrases, emphasizing each word, getting louder with each repetition. Usually at this point, he would put some finishing touch on his lecture, whirl around, and stalk away. Later, it would be as if nothing had happened. But now he had thrown the remote control through the front window, and Don said this: "We did not bring you here to let you continue your sleazy habits. We brought you here, your mother and I took you in, to cure you, to cure the world of you. You were garbage when we found you. You're garbage now, and you will continue to be garbage until you enter the house of the Lord, cleanse yourself, and begin to lead a decent, God-fearing life." And then Chris's newest set of foster parents were in church. And Chris was still curled up on the sofa watching the Braves getting trounced, looking at the perfectly blue sky through an impossibly round hole in the window. And then he was upstairs, throwing underwear, socks, and jeans into the old Samsonite suitcase he had come here with in May. And then, checking the worn manila envelope to see that the pictures of his family, his real family, were there, and to see if his money was there too. The money he had panhandled for, and missed meals for, and even picked peaches for once, and hidden away all this time, little by little, saving it for something special, and slipping the envelope carefully under the clothes, back into the suitcase, and then carrying his suitcase past lawns and hedges, up the curving access ramp to the freeway, and then he was putting out his thumb, and then he was running to a shiny dark green Volkswagen bus growling like a sports car, waiting in the grassy median strip. The license plate on the back of the bus was from New Mexico. It said, "Coyote." And that is the end of Chapter 1 of Circle Within a Circle by Monte Killingsworth. It's available for checkout if you want to read the rest of Chris's story. Thank you for joining me for another First Chapter Friday, and I hope you have a great weekend.